Hello, welcome back to JM Football. My name is Justin Penik. Dalton Feely is alongside of me, and these are your Week 17 NFL Power Rankings. Dalton Feely, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Soon to be Happy New Year, but we're still going with this football year, baby. Woo! Entering Week 17. Playoffs are starting to get decided. I'm excited, Penik.
The tyrants at John Boy Media decided to give us a week off for Christmas, but we're still here. We're recording from home. We're talking football. That's what we're doing, and we're starting off with the Caleb-Williams-Ville. The Panthers at 32, the Commanders at 31, just made a quarterback change. The Cardinals at 30, the Patriots at 29, the thank you next tier.
Shout out Ariana Grande.
The Giants at 28, the Jets at 27, the Chargers at 26, the Titans at 25, the Bears at 24. Dalton, any comment?
I mean, the Bears win another game at home versus the Cardinals this week. Fields looks pretty darn decent. I don't think it changes the conversation too much on what they do with the first overall pick if the Panthers still have it by the end of the year, which I think they will. But Fields looks pretty good, so I'm excited to see at the end of the year if he continues to progress, if his market goes up in terms of trade value.
Playoffs, why not? A lot of teams in this, but there's a lot of teams in the hunt. The Raiders. The Raiders at 23, the Saints at 22, the Falcons at 21, the Steelers at 20, the Packers at 19, shouldn't be here, the Vikings at 18, and the Broncos at 17. Dalton, there's a team you want to give some love to.
Do you want to give some love to them? Well, I mean, we have to. The Raiders. I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders. Unbelievable. Christmas Day special. Santa Claus goes to Vegas and says, here's a present for you. You're going to get a little something. Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Chiefs at home. You're going to get some coal. Unbelievable. The Raiders win this game 20-14. Aiden O'Connell doesn't throw for a passing yard in the second, third, or fourth quarter. 2 defensive touchdowns on back-to-back plays for this Raiders defense. Shout out Pat Graham, former Giants DC. Yes,
that's right.
Antonio Pierce has to be the head coach next year in Vegas. I don't know if you agree with that, but they have better learned from the Rich Bisaccia era where he took over as interim head coach. They made the playoffs. They didn't go with him. Hire Josh McDaniels. He was atrocious. Now Antonio Pierce has these guys playing through multiple brick walls, and it's electric to watch this defense play right now.
Yeah, I mean, beating the Chiefs, which is a rival, and, I'm sure every team in the AFC feels the Patrick Mahomes effect, the Joe Burrow effect, Herbert, Lamar. Like, there's so many just elite quarterbacks in that AFC. I mean, I think that's why the Browns went out and traded for Deshaun Watson, because it's like, oh, we're looking around, and, everybody has an elite quarterback. All those teams in the AFC have elite quarterbacks, and you're just standing there with a good roster and a good head coach. So it's good for the Raiders to get that win, and especially to go into Arrowhead like that, nationally televised game, and I mean they embarrass the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean that's embarrassing for the Chiefs, and maybe we'll even flip this to a little bit of a Chiefs conversation. For the Chiefs to not get like a passing yard thrown against them for like multiple quarters, and to lose a game like that, where Mahomes is losing it, Travis Kelce is throwing his helmet around. That's embarrassing for the Kansas City Chiefs, which nobody would have ever really predicted that this would happen to Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and like this current era of the Chiefs. Nobody thought it, but Patrick Graham and Antonio Pierce, I mean, at least that defense, that offense is a totally different story. They don't really have a very good running game. Josh Jacobs, I definitely don't think he should be a Raider next year just because he's not efficient. They got a backup running back there who's actually been quite efficient, quite good. They don't really have an answer at quarterback, but Antonio Pierce has got these guys playing the type of ball that usually the interim head coach says that we're going to come in and play. The interim head coach comes in and says, we're going to get back to basics. We're going to play good defense. We're going to play hard. We're going to hit you hard. We're going to run the ball and do all that. And that's what Antonio Pierce has done. And they cough in the middle of that too.
Absolutely have to. It's a must.
That's embarrassing for the Chiefs, which, I mean, whoa, Alexa. Which we've talked about the Chiefs, and I kind of just wanted to say that. But shout out to...
All right.
Alexa, quiet. She defined the Kansas City Chiefs for me. All right, let's move. Any other team in playoffs, why not? Saints, Falcons, Steelers, Packers, Vikings, Broncos. Broncos.
Shout out Falcons for beating my Colts. I mean, that was a big win for them, keeping them in the NFC South hunt.
That was a weird line. Once I saw that the Falcons were favored in that game, I was like, okay, they're winning the game, and they did.
So toxic.
No, it's not. It was a weird Vegas line. It's like they shouldn't have been favored.
Weird Vegas line, and then I guess the Packers, like, good job, you barely beat the Panthers on the road. Unbelievable.
Joe Barry's defense currently disgusts me, and I'm also pretty disgusted by the Broncos too. Like I wanna root for Russ. Like I want to root for this Broncos team. You know, they play, and you want to talk about an interesting brand of football. I mean, they play an interesting brand of football. I thought Russ kind of got overhated last year. You know, I was kind of rooting for them. And that's a really bad loss. I think their playoff chances now, they went. If they win, they're currently sitting at 8%. They're basically done. If they lose, it's less than 1% against the Chargers, and if they win, it goes up to 12%. They're done. They're not making it.
They needed to win that game versus New England. And I mean, you're down 23-7, you come back, tie the game up, and New England, Chad Ryland. That's so funny because he's been struggling all year as the New England rookie kicker, and he makes a 54-yarder for the game as a game winner. That's so funny to me. Like, that's how Denver is going to be knocked out. They come back and then they lose ultimately on a New England comeback.
The next tier we have is someone will win the AFC South, and it simply has three teams. It's the Colts at 16, the Texans at 15, and the Jaguars at 14. And woof.
Woof. I mean, bark, woof, any noise you want to make, man. Like, the AFC South has gotten cold, and it's gotten cold fast. Texans without CJ Stroud, they lose this week to the Browns. Colts get their ass kicked in Atlanta, which, I mean, Art Smith's fighting for his job, so to lose by 19 points against Atlanta, that's crazy. And then Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence practices Friday with a concussion, but concussion injury, shoulder injury, they get obliterated, demolished, any way you want to put it. They got their ass handed them even worse than the other two teams this week. Who's going to win it, Penik? I want to know. You tell me right now. AFC South, who is winning the division?
Is CJ Stroud healthy?
He's practicing today, so it looks like he's going to play this week, which is big news. And
I think the Colts win it.
Are you just saying that to flatter me?
No, I think the Jaguars are in deep shit right now.
Right side is they have Carolina this week, but they look 4 games in a row. They're the coldest team in the NFL besides the Washington Commanders, and they don't really exist. So they're basically the coldest team in football right now, Jacksonville.
Yeah, their defense is not playing well, and at least my eye test, man, and I'm trying to see if like maybe numbers back it up a little bit. My eye test says Trevor Lawrence is just playing really reckless football right now.
And
Am I wrong?
No, I would agree with that. I do want to ask, like, it's impressive that he hasn't missed a game in 3 years. I mean, he's had the shoulder injury, the concussion injury, and he's had the knee injury too, which he suffered on Monday night against Baltimore. So he's had 3 different injuries in the span of like 3 weeks, and it's impressive he's playing through it. But at what point in Jacksonville are you saying you're not healthy? You are now not helping us win games. I'm not saying CJ Beathard is the savior in Jacksonville by no means.
No, Lawrence is the best option that they have at this point, but
if he's not healthy, is he really your best option? Because now you've lost 4 in a row. You've seen your division chances go from 8-3 to 8-7, and you have the Texans and Colts tie with you now. Your chances of winning the division is like 40%, especially since the Colts and Texans play Week 18 against each other. Basically, have to win out, and that is crazy to think about. If we said that a month ago, we would have been laughing.
The Jaguars have the Panthers this week. Who do they have the final week of the year?
Titans.
Oh, all right. I do think maybe not the Panthers, but we've seen crazier things. I think one of those two teams will upset the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm thinking the Titans. But listen, like the Commanders almost beat the the Panthers almost beat the Packers this week, and the Panthers are not good.
No, but I do think that Joe Barry defense is so unique that it's just bad quarterbacks just do really well, and I don't want to call Bryce Young a bad quarterback yet, but bad quarterbacks who are having a bad season and are bad quarterbacks in the year 2023 are having astronomical games against Joe Barry's defense, but for some reason he could shut down Patrick Mahomes. which I guess it's not that hard to do.
Wow.
Whoa. Weird. Your playoffs, you better be there. Let's move there. The Seahawks are at 13. The Bengals at 12. The Bucs, hey now, look out, at 11, starting to separate themselves from the rest of the NFC South. The Rams at 10. Just chugging along. Sales Steve and I are starting to think that the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. Ooh, did I say that? The Chiefs at 9. The Browns at 8. And division champs for the first time since 1993, the Detroit Lions.
Did you just say the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl?
I'm starting to think, Dalton. Now, it's not who I'm rooting for. I'm going to reveal who I'm rooting for in this episode of Power Rankings. But I'm starting to get the feeling that the Rams are getting hot at the right time. They are a top 5 offense in the National Football League towards the second half of this year. Matthew Stafford is making throws that, like, oh, if Pat Mahomes did this,
He did it so much earlier in his career.
They're looking really good, man. They're looking really, really good. And the defense isn't, like, fantastic. Yes, it has Aaron Donald, but the defense isn't anything great, but I think it's average right now. But I think you have a quarterback that's playing really, really good quarterback right now, and I think that is what can drive them through the postseason.
This offense looks like the 2018 version it was.
And really, the line's getting better, too.
Yeah.
Over time.
Like Goff to Stafford, to Todd Gurley to Kyron Williams, to Cooper Kupp, and now Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods. Like, this offense looks really darn good right now, like you're saying. I do want to give a little love in the playoffs. You better be there. Buccaneers have won 4 in a row. Like you said, they've really distanced themselves in the NFC South. Baker Mayfield, the last 2 games, has played electric. And against teams that shouldn't be awful. I don't want to say they're good teams between the Packers and the Jags, but Baker's played really well. 76 per completion percentage, averaging 330 yards per game, averaging 3 touchdowns, 10.5 yards per attempt, 141 rating over the last 2 games. He's played lights out. And this defense, this Todd Bowles defense, you're starting to see those normal guys contribute. Again, Devin White has a half a sack and a pick. Levante David recorded a sack. Antoine Winfield Jr., your guy.
Yes,
you love
awesome.
Antoine Winfield Jr. Sack, interception, fumble recovery in this game. They completely shit on the Jaguars, 30-12. And now they have a game lead in the NFC South. They play the Saints. So basically, if they win this week, the NFC South is theirs. You win in week 17, you're 9-7. You're looking really good to win the division and host a playoff game.
Through the last 5 weeks, little pop quiz.
Sure.
There are 3 teams that are close to the Buffalo Bills in offensive efficiency, EPA per play. There are 3 teams, they are all above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in our power rankings. Who are those 3 teams that are right near in efficiency with the Tampa Bay Bucks? Who are those 3 teams?
Okay.
They're all above the Bucks right now.
So did you say the Bills are 1?
The Bills are one of those teams that is right there, yes.
The Bills, I'm going to say...
Since week 12. Did I say since week 12?
Yeah, you said the last 5 weeks or whatever. I'm going to say the Rams are up there.
The Rams are ahead. The Rams are actually the second best offense EPA per play since week 12. The first is the 49ers.
And my last guess is now the 49ers.
No, they're first. But it's the Bills, the Ravens, and the Lions. Those are the 3 teams that the Bucks are basically, they've been as efficient as those teams over the last month. And hey, we view those 3 teams as 3 pretty good teams.
Yeah.
And the Bucks defense, even though they had a rough stretch towards the middle of the season, they're getting better as time goes on too. And they still have dudes. Like that. That year that they won the Super Bowl, not everybody is still there, but they still have Levante David. They still have Shaq Barrett. They have a better version of Antoine Winfield. So, and I actually like Todd Bowles has that playoff experience of winning in the playoffs, and I think that type of defense in the playoffs of pressuring the quarterback and putting pressure on an offensive line and trying to get the quarterback on the ground because sacks are drive enders. I think that type of defense can work in the postseason. It can work in the playoffs. So I'm going to be really excited to see, especially with Baker Mayfield playing such good ball right now, really going to be excited to see what this Bucs team can do in the playoffs. They have to take care of business because probably they're playing the Dallas Cowboys the opening round. That is an extremely enticing opening round matchup.
It would be intriguing. I just want to say, I'm not going to give a pop quiz because I think the stats kind of crazy. I looked at the Bucs defense. I want to see who their leading sack getter is because, they have Shaq Barrett. They have Joe Tyron Shionka still. Vita Vea, of course. Do you know who their leading sack getter is, Justin Penik? If you don't want to guess, that's fine. It's
No. What year is he? What year is he?
Is
he like an old guy, a young guy?
A rookie.
He's a rookie?
Yeah.
Who are their edge rushers are Shaq Barrett. Did they draft? Don't tell me it's Yaya Diaby.
It's Diaby.
No way.
Yaya Diaby's got 6.5 sacks. Leads
no way.
Out of Louisville, yeah.
Oh man, that's so cool. I loved him. He's a 20. He's a little bit older for a prospect. He's like 24 years old. I remember from Louisville, but man, I really liked him coming out of Louisville. That's crazy.
Dude, it's crazy. Anyway, back to our power rankings. I thought
good for me for knowing that.
Good for you. Good
for me.
Good for Yaya Diaby and good for Justin Penik.
We talked about the Bucs. We've talked about the Rams. We talked about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Browns.
The Cleveland Browns. Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco led.
Listen, Joe Flacco, the last 4 games, I guess the 4 games he started has been, I don't want to say he's been out of this world, but for a guy that's basically, the phrase this year since Justin Pugh said it, come off the couch, if you will. He's played some pretty darn good football. He's turned the ball over a few times, but as we talked about prior to the show, like the interceptions he's had, they're not superly dumb, if you will. I don't know.
At least this past week against the Texans, like you look at 2 interceptions. They both came at the end of the first half, where the one that was intended for Marquise Goodwin that was intercepted by Houston. Yeah. That was a 50-yard, 50 air yard. All right, I'm just gonna throw this up, and if anything, it works as a punt. Hey, maybe you don't want to make that decision, but less than 2 minutes to go, I don't mind it. And then also you had, with 5 seconds to go in the first half, that's when his other interception came, and Derek Stingley got it. So, I originally was like, Joe Flacco 2 interceptions. This offense is very boomer bust, and Joe Flacco's very boomer bust. I don't mind interceptions late in the first half. So, Joe Flacco, really good game.
Listen, they're 10-5. They really put themselves in great position to be in the playoffs, and they're somewhat of a sneaky team because we look at the AFC and we see these teams with the good quarterbacks and the electric offenses, but you know what? The Browns have just been relatively consistent, and I believe, I could be wrong with the stat, I saw it before we recorded, they're the first team in NFL history to have at least 10 wins and have 4 different quarterbacks record a win as the starter in a game. That, to me, to overcome not 1, not 2, but not 3, but then 4 different quarterbacks to start a game for your team and have a 10-win season. Give credit to Kevin Stefanski, give credit to general manager Andrew Berry for setting up this roster. This is not your average Cleveland Browns. It really isn't. And even when in a run game like versus Houston, Jerome Ford had 15 carries for 25 yards.
Yeah, not good.
Carries for 11 yards. Their run game hasn't been as effective, but Joe Flacco has played pretty darn well. 368 yards last week, Justin.
Yeah. I still find it very difficult to see a path in which they win some playoff games. I just do, because there's such a quarterback disadvantage there. I know Joe Flacco's playing well. He's throwing it around the yard, yada. But I think a good defense and a good team that will really sit down and figure out, all right, well, what are we going to have to do? For Joe Flacco, who's immobile, what are we going to do to stop this guy, get to this guy, force him into mistakes, which I think that they, an opposing team can do. I just don't see it happening in the postseason for the Browns. But I mean, I do think Kevin Stefanski, just looking at the other playoff teams, now that the Texans have fallen off a little bit and that stories, seems to be over. I know your Colts, that's that's a sexy team, but I do think Kevin Stefanski does deserve Coach of the Year. I do. I really do.
Yeah, and it's totally fair. I mean, there's a lot of good candidates this year too, as you said. Even Kyle Shanahan, who I believe has never won a Coach of the Year award, having the best team in the NFC. That could
he has all pros at every position.
No, but I'm just saying, that could be up there. Cleveland Browns at a 5 seed right now. If that stays true, they're playing the winner of the AFC South. They could. That's a game
Oh,
I think
okay.
they could win if that stays true. I mean, they lose a game, Bills could jump them in that
Give
spot.
me a Colts Browns rematch.
We got screwed. Remember, we've talked about that. Sean's,
That was one of the best games of the year.
yeah, and fucking referees all over again. Sorry for the
Whoa.
Um, let's move on, Panic. I do want to talk about these Detroit Lions. Like you said, first division title since 1993. They're gonna have a home playoff game for the first time in 22 years. This is electric. I mean, they're not. I said you're not your average Cleveland Browns. They're not your average Detroit Lions. We got some parity in the NFL, which is awesome. Shout out Dan Campbell, another Coach of the Year candidate, man. This offense is a really fun unit. And I'm excited to see what they do in the playoffs too. Jahmyr Gibbs, Monroe St. Brown, David Montgomery, Jared Goff, relatively consistent. He's not going to wow you and dazzle you all across the field, but for the most part, like this season, he doesn't make stupid plays, if you will. Like he
No.
had a couple games where he had 3 interceptions, like the one game versus the Bears, but he's usually pretty smart with the ball. And this offense has been pretty darn good. You've mentioned the concerns about this Lions defense. Why do you have concerns for Detroit entering the playoffs?
And it's a very similar talking point with the Browns, where I just think everybody gets so much better in the postseason. Coaching gets better, game plans get better, they get more fine-tuned. You're putting way more energy into a postseason matchup than you do just, for any other matchup, just because of how much it means, right? And I think not the Lions offense, I just don't know if they're gonna be able to put up 40-30 every single playoff game. But I know that there's a decent chance that their defense, and I know there's Lions fans that are watching this being like, you gotta respect the Lions more, but I'm waiting for that stretch of time where that defense has been, not dominating, but not allowing 30 points on somewhat of a consistent basis. Over the last month, their defense has been a little bit better. You check EPA, and they're close to average. They're right by the Bucks. They're right by the Bills. I'm just still waiting for, Aiden Hutchinson hasn't stepped up as much as I thought. In the sack department, they have some good interior guys, but similar talking point with the Browns, I think there's going to be a team that will limit them in the postseason, and the defense at the end of the day will be maybe the reason why they lose.
And you know what? I completely agree with you. Like the defense has kind of taken a step back from earlier in the year, and it was like a little bit of a roller coaster, right? They're riding nice and high. They went down a hill really fast, and now they're starting to creep that way back up. Still not great, but the secondary last week played really well. Ife Melifanu from Q's, my Syracuse friends are gonna love that. Records 2 sacks and has a game-winning interception for the Lions in that game. Kirby Joseph has 2 picks. Brian Branch, the rookie, has an interception in the sack. So these young guys in the secondary, where we had concerns earlier in the year, they're starting to prove themselves on that back end, which is an important part of an Aaron Glenn-led defense. Like if the pass rush isn't going to be there consistently from that front four, you're going to have those guys in the secondary get challenged, and they stepped up to the challenge versus Minnesota. Nick Mullen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even looking at PFF right now, where Aiden Hutchinson, he has the 90 PFF grade and the 90 pass rush grade. That's great, but I think in the postseason you need to get to the quarterback, because that is what is going to stop the drive. Sacks, they're so much more important. I kind of reverse my brain. In the regular season, I'm all about stopping the explosive pass play. Keep everything in front of you. Keep everything in front of you. Bad offenses, if they run 10, 11, 12 plays in a drive, it's going to fizzle out and it's going to end on a field goal, right? Everybody gets so much better in the postseason. And, maybe you won't get officials that are so willingly to throw a flag for holding. And it's like they'll let guys play. So these 10, 11, 12 play drives, maybe they do end up in touchdowns when you're playing a better offense and you're playing a better team. So you got to get the sack. You got to get the quarterback on the ground. And, Aiden Hutchinson has, 6 this year. So, you could be having a great, 18 QB hits outside of the sacks. So that's 24 total QB hits is awesome. 63 hurries is amazing. 87 total pressures is amazing. But what really makes the difference in the postseason is getting the quarterback on the ground.
100%.
Let's move to Lombardi Land. We have the Eagles at 6, the Cowboys at 5, the Bills at 4, the Dolphins at 3, the 49ers at 2, the Ravens at 1. But the Bills aren't even in the postseason. You guys have them at the top. Well, they're one of the best NFL teams.
And they're now in the wild card spot. They had arguably the most ideal stretch in week 16 about what they needed to happen. They're now the 6th seed in the AFC, and they're still climbing. There's still a land, Justin Penik. If the Miami Dolphins lose out and the Bills win out, the Bills win a division. There is a world where this happens.
Dolphins have the Ravens this week, and then who do they have? Don't they have a bad team? Oh, the Colts. What?
No, Bills. They play the Bills.
Oh, they play the Bills.
So that would be a Sunday night flex. Miami Buffalo. Winner gets the division. Loser is the wild card.
Wow.
Electric if that happens. And there's a world where that happens. Miami plays Baltimore. Baltimore is playing like the best team. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, they're the hottest team in the NFL.
But this was a huge win, though. If they lost to Dallas, I was going to come on here and say Buffalo's winning the division. And I had said a few weeks ago in Football Today with Bobby Skinner, I said the Miami Dolphins are going to win the division. This is when the Bills were still hot and whatever. And I said the Miami Dolphins are going to come and surprise people and win the division. Now, I'm a little shaky about that take because the Bills are now hot in Miami. I don't want to say they're not hot, but they're not the same team they were. I feel like that defense hasn't been as good since Jalen Phillips' injury in MetLife, but they still have 50 sacks on the year. Bradley Chubb's playing out of his mind right now. He leads the league with 6 forced fumbles this season. They've recorded 50 sacks as a team, which is still a crazy, that's underrated. We talked about the Eagles last year having 70. The Dolphins defense, who doesn't have, they lost Jalen Phillips and they have Bradley Chubb, but besides those two guys at pass rusher, that's really it. Christian Wilkins is really good. Zach Sieler's has had a really good season. Andrew Van Ginkel has 6 sacks. But the Dolphins, they really stepped up versus Dallas. Game-winning field goal by Jason Sanders. Really impressive.
Do you get, now that the Cowboys lost, right? I think they've lost 2 in a row now.
Yep.
It's December. We're getting close to January. Cowboys fall off. Are you thinking that, or are you still all right, Cowboys stay the course?
I'm concerned about their run game. I think that's when we're going to start on their offense. Dak looked okay. He had the fumble at the 1 yard line to start the game, which ultimately was a big reason why they didn't win the game based on the score. CD had 93 yards in the first quarter. He only finishes with 118 the rest of the game. But Tony Pollard, man, they let go of Zeke, and I was a truther of Tony Pollard where let him get the ball. He's so efficient. This year, he's ran for 100 yards once this season. He's ran for over 80 yards once this season. That was week 3. They're really struggling on the ground game, and that had always been the Cowboys' bread and butter of their offense. And it's a good thing Dak is good, because if he wasn't, this offense would have gone downhill really fast. You know better than I do about the NFC East and how the Dallas Cowboys are. I'm concerned more about not them in the playoffs and December, whatever. On the road, they're 3-5 on the road. They don't win road games. They're undefeated at home. But I don't know, man. You elaborate to me. What are your concerns on Dallas?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up their home and road splits, because that's the main thing for me right now. It's and I don't even know how do you even explain it. Is it a thing? No, but yeah, it's a thing, right? Is it something that you can quantify, and is it something that you could be well, this is the reason why, this is every team has to blah blah blah. I can't quantify it. There's some teams that, you look at, like my 07 Giants, they were undefeated on the road. They didn't lose a single road game, blah, 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 but then they lose at home. It's just sometimes teams have these little quips, and then it starts to get in your head. I guarantee it is in these guys' heads of, shit, we're 3-5 on the road, and we're 7-0 at home. Guarantee it's in their heads. So that's the main concern for me. And then obviously, the January gyps that the Cowboys get too, which is an every year thing. That is where my NFC East bias will show. Is that this just happens. This happens every single year with them around this time.
And right now they would play the Bucs in Tampa Bay. I'm based on how the Bucs trajectory is going and how Dallas's trajectory is going. I'd be interested to watch that game. I don't think that a couple weeks ago I would have said, "Oh, Dallas is winning that game."
That's care. Probably a -4.5 game, where Dallas is favored by 4.5 points. Bucs cover.
Bucs could win that game too. Right now, I still think Dallas is the better team, but Tampa's hot, and you never know what the playoff.
Right. If it's a road game, then, man, but even on a neutral field or a Dallas home game, that's a -7.5 split. It could be closer to 3. Could be closer to -3, -3.5.
Sure.
I'm going to be really interested to see what Vegas sets that line at.
If that happens, me too, man. I do want to give a little love to the Dolphins. just because that was their first win against a team that had a winning record. So
Hey,
you're not as fraudulent anymore. So good on you. Good on you. Raheem Mostert, he runs for his 21st touchdown of the year, his first career 1,000-yard season, and the Dolphins' first 1,000-yard rusher since
give me a year.
2016. I love this player.
Shoot. I don't know.
Out of Boise State, last hint.
Don't know.
Jay Ajayi.
Ah,
Love Jay Ajayi.
Super Bowl champion Jay Ajayi.
From your Philadelphia Eagles.
From our Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about Ravens and the 49ers. That was the game of the week. Can I tell you something I'm getting really tired of?
What are you getting tired of, Justin Penik?
I'm getting tired of marketing up the games of the weekend, and this is the game of the week, and then they're blowouts. Like, give me, like, an enticing, like, powerhouse versus powerhouse team. I know the Dolphins and the Cowboys, it was somewhat of a good game, but that was a game that I was kind of tuned out for, night of Christmas Eve. It's, big night for family.
Sure.
But give me a game that I could be, like, locked in for, and it, like, goes down to the wire.
Listen.
Ravens are good.
They're saving that for the playoffs.
I hope so.
I'm making a decision. I'm making a locked-in decision. An award was decided on Monday Night Football. And it's the award that we always talk about. It's such an important award. And it's decided. I've decided. Mike McDonald is the NFL Assistant Coach of the Year. I've decided it. I'm sorry. I know that's the award. Everyone was talking about Monday Night Football, about who should be winning it and who's the favorite. No, Justin Penik, not funny.
Nope, not funny.
I thought it was funny. Anyway, no.
Looking something up.
The Ravens defense look like they're playing their ass off, man. Like Kyle Hamilton has 2 picks in that game. They forced 5 interceptions in total. Really hoping Kyle Hamilton's okay because he's a big part of that.
I hope so too.
Jadeveon Clowney's a 3-down guy, which I think is awesome.
Kyle Van Noy!
Kyle Van Noy's got like 8 sacks.
We've made jokes on here before talking about how this Baltimore has always been like the land of the the old and like not misused, but like they try and like recuperate these old pass rushers that are like spent.
Yeah.
JPP and Justin Houston. They've done this for the last couple of years, and now it's like, holy shit, Kyle Van Noy bull rushed, had a sack, and then Clowney had another sack on like back-to-back plays. I'm like, what am I watching right now? Kyle Van Noy? What?
7 sacks. Clowney's got 8.5 this year.
Crazy.
It's so funny. And I mean, like, they're just filled with defensive talent. Justin Matabuke, Adafe Away, Pat Quinn. I mentioned Kyle Hamilton.
Travis Jones, my guy Travis Jones, I think, had a sack out of UConn.
Oh, UConn. That's right, like a 4th-round pick. Like Brandon Stevens had a solid year in the secondary. Marlon Humphrey, of course. Like, they have dudes at all levels on their defense, and they're playing their ass off. There was a play, I think it was like in the 3rd quarter, Christian McCaffrey bounces a run to the outside, and like the entire defense just swarms on that side. McCaffrey breaks 1 tackle. He makes another man miss, and they're just swarming. It was a loss for 2 yards. And I'm like, that's a defense that is bought in. Like, you just watching them, and they're
swarming to the ball like that, yeah.
And to limit that Niners offense, which we consider one of the best in football, if not the best in football, to 19 points at home on Christmas Day, on the road. And it was really garbage time where the Niners were trying to cash in again. Good for Baltimore, man. Like, very impressive win.
I'm saying something right now, and this is a socials clip. Just giving you a heads up, socials team. I'm deciding something right now. I am rooting for the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. Like I am a fan, and I am rooting for the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. That is my team this postseason.
Why is that?
People have doubted Lamar Jackson for years. For years. Even when he was putting up way more production and way more value than he is right now in 2019. And I even think sometimes coaching doesn't view him as a legit thrower of the football and a legit quarterback and a legit passer. I think that's why Greg Roman was let go. I think that's why he was fired as offense coordinator, because it was nice to start off his career in 2018, 2019. It was really nice to start his career. Wow, look at how Harbaugh and Roman, and look at how the Ravens are kind of tinkering the offense for Lamar Jackson to get him comfortable as a pro and to do things that he's comfortable with. And I feel like early on, 2019, 2020, he started to prove that he is a good passer. He's a deep ball passer. He could throw it to all three levels of the field. And they didn't really evolve the offense. They didn't really make it a pro-style offense. Fast forward to this year, you finally give him Zay Flowers, who's having a really good rookie season, continued to have a really good game. You bring in Odell, you bring in Bateman, who I'm still critical of those guys that I want them to do more. Mark Andrews goes down with an injury, and Lamar Jackson is still doing what he needs to do. And is it like 2019 nutso numbers? No. But still, one of the league's best offenses. It's balanced. They can run the ball. They still have a good line. Lamar's administering the ball. He's throwing to all three levels of the field. He's running a more pro-style offense while still running the ball and doing the things that he even did in like 2018, 2019, 2020. People have always doubted him. I'm rooting for the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I am a Lamar Jackson fan, and I think finally they have the defense and the total team to possibly get it done.
And you know what? I think one of the most important things with the Ravens right now, Lamar Jackson, knock on wood, he's played every game so far. I mean, the last couple of years, he hasn't played more than 12 games, which is huge. Last year, you have Tyler Huntley starting in a playoff game versus Cincinnati.
And they almost won.
That's a problem right away. Yeah, I mean, is Lamar Jackson having the 2019 year where statistically? No, but he's playing really good ball right now.
And he's healthy, which is such a great point by you, because that's been the thing. It's been the bugaboo the last couple of years, is that the Ravens have always been one of those teams that it's like, yeah, maybe they could do something. Or it's like they're not really a complete team. They've been a frustrating team because they would play really good games and then they would have really bad stinkers of games against teams that they should beat. Haven't had that this year. They've kicked the shit out of very, very good teams. There's a stat that I saw. I'm pulling it up right now. I DM'd it to myself because I said I want to talk about it on Power Rankings. And here is that stat. From OptaStats, the Ravens have 7 wins by 14-plus points this season. All of those opponents are currently above 500. Houston, Cleveland, Detroit, Seattle, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, San Francisco. No team in NFL history has more than 5 regular season wins by 14-plus points against teams that finished this season with a winning record. And that's crazy.
I want to add on to that point, Justin, to show how dominant Baltimore's been. Ravens have played 15 games this year, just like all teams. They've had the lead in the 2-minute warning in every game this year. At some point, they've had the lead in all 15 games. There's only 2 teams in NFL history that had done it prior to this 12-3 Baltimore Ravens team, and that's just the 1972 Miami Dolphins and 2007 New England Patriots. I mean, one team went almost undefeated that lost to your Giants 2007. One team did go undefeated. So if we're going to put Baltimore in a class of the 72 Dolphins and the 07 Patriots, they're pretty darn freaking good, man.
All right, Dalton, we're running long. Very quick. I'm not concerned about the San Francisco 49ers. The only thing I will be concerned about is Brock Purdy's body and his ability to take hits and getting these stingers. And, he's not the biggest guy out there. And especially if Trent Williams is out and if he's continuing to struggle with an injury, that changes the offense. So it's on the premise that Trent Williams is healthy and he's there, and that Brock Purdy's body is okay. But if those two things are fine, then I'm not worried about the 49ers because they have like all pros. If you look at O-line, running back, receiver, their front 7, linebacker, like they have all pros everywhere. So I'm not overly concerned.
I'm not either. I mean, it's a game where 2 teams played, 2 really good teams are going up against each other. And you know what? The Niners, quote unquote, got blitzed. Like I don't think anyone saw, if you were predicting this game, that someone was going to win by 2 scores. And it may have the game look even worse than a 2-score game. I'm not worried about it either. I do think Brock Purdy, the MVP case, I know it's not the most important thing in the world. It definitely took a hit this week, throwing 4 picks. First time a Niners quarterback threw 4 picks since Colin Kaepernick in 2015. And, I'm kind of surprised with the quarterbacks they've had play in games since that range that Purdy's the last is the first quarterback to do it since Kaepernick. But that said, man, like they still have McCaffrey, 8 straight games with 100 yards or more from scrimmage, sets a franchise record. Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, like these guys on the offense, I'm not worried about. The defense is still dogs on all levels too. It's just, can Purdy overcome this back-to-back weeks with stingers? Can Trent Williams get healthy, man? They're still my pick to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it really does. I really does depend on Trent Williams, because if Trent Williams is out, then I will not. I think I go away from the 49ers possibly as being the favorite in the NFC, and like I said, those Rams, man. I know they're a wild card team. They are not a sexy team, but they're playing good football. And I really feel like football, no matter how much I like the stats and stuff like that, yep, I really feel like in the postseason, it is getting hot at the right time. And I feel like the Rams are that team. Rams, Ravens, Super Bowl.
Wow. Niners, Bills. All right.
That's your power rankings for this week. We'll see you next week. JM Football, Dalton Feely, Justin Penik. Peace. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe.